What's up, everybody? It's Friday, and it's time for Tower Talk, February 12th, 2021. Season of the Chosen is here, and we have a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. Starting with highlights from the Update 3.10 patch notes. One of the biggest bangers is right here at the top of the page. New landing zone added in Eventide Ruins for all players who complete the Beyond Light campaign. Oh my gosh, that should have always been there. But if I could just remember to use it is the thing. I've gotten so used to loading in at barracks and driving that I keep forgetting I can go straight to Eventide Ruins now. Let's see. Dreaming City. The Reverie Dawn armor set has been reissued with a new max power cap and the combat style mod socket. So we have updated Reverie Dawn with a new power cap. I don't know about y'all, but that was an armor set that I really loved. Unfortunately, I can't see a real reason for me to re-add Reverie Dawn to my collection, to be honest. You know, I have some looking at my vault to do. I'm trying to remember, did I keep my old Reverie Dawn set, or did I delete it all? Because if I deleted it all, like, I can't see a justification for earning it again. But I also still see that, like, I would like to go after some of those things just to try to get good rolls, and then, like, it's a piece of armor that I could put ornaments on. That would be good. So there is that. And then, of course, Waking Vigil, Vouchsafe, Retold Tale, and Sleepless from the Dreaming City have been reissued with new max power caps and new perk pools. I'm not going to go through all of the fixes and other issues. This is kind of like a TLDR of highlights that's a PvE player like me cares about. So let's see. For the Moon, the Dreambane armor set has been reissued with a new max power cap and the combat style mod socket, as well as a dedicated Nightmare mod socket. I love this change. We should never have had to choose between what is now the combat style stuff, you know, like the War Mind cells and things, and being able to use the Dreambane mods. They're too important in the higher difficulties of the Nightmare hunts, and it's just kind of a shame that we didn't get things together on that a little bit sooner, because it's kind of an old activity now without as much reason to do it. But I still appreciate the change. Like, it's still in the game, it's still a thing, and maybe it'll bring some more population back to that now that you don't have to choose either or. You actually have a dedicated slot on that armor. I know I want to go re-earn it on my Titan, because the astronaut suit's one of my favorites, and I would be willing to hold on to a set of it instead of just ornamenting it, now that it has that functionality. So that's pretty cool. And again, there's a long list of fixes with various things involving the Moon. Overall, to note in here, as they went through the fixes for all the planets, that there was an issue across the game where the waypoint system was having trouble with different one-way connections and temporary area connections, and it was making the waypoint all screwy. I'm sure you guys all encountered that. It's still kind of alive and well in a couple of places, but a lot of what was happening on the planets is fixed. So that's really nice. I know my way around, but not everyone is good at that, and so I'm happy for the people that that's really going to help. There are a bunch of fixes for various public events. That includes Altars of Sorrow, which is cool. And then there were a whole bunch of fixes for the strikes, specifically Warden of Nothing, Insight Terminus, Scarlet Keep, Lake of Shadows, the Corrupted Broodhold, Inverted Spire, and Exodus Crash. I think that's pretty much the whole list, so there's various fixes. Now, there's one that interested me, which was on Warden of Nothing. They said, fix an issue where players could progress too far without pulling a lever and then have to backtrack to find it. I feel like that's where you kill the Vex and pull the lever on the console to move the train out of the way. So I guess I haven't done that strike yet, but I'm guessing that that means If you don't pull the lever, there must be more of a barrier there on the train. So maybe they've made it so you completely cannot jump through there anymore, which would be sad. I used to like getting a head start on people and letting them pull the lever. But that's just me. That's just me. In the grand scheme of things, not a big deal because it was never intended to be that way. And let's see, was any of the rest of this anything worth calling out? Not really. Also remember, everyone, that your Crucible tokens and Crucible token gifts have been deprecated. You lost your chance if you didn't turn those Crucible tokens in for materials. I got a lot of materials when I did it. I mean, like, for every 15 engrams, it was like 60 shards and 2 or 3 masterwork cores. Enhancement cores, whatever they call them now. But yeah, it was a lot. So it was worth doing, especially when you're trying to bulk up on stuff for the season. So that's great. There were also a bunch of fixes to the Crucible maps: Bannerfall, Burnout, Wormhaven, Midtown, Radiant Cliffs, Twilight Gap, Exodus Blue, Javelin 4, Fragment, Midtown, and Dead Cliffs. I think I named some of those twice because I was just kind of moving through, but it was a lot of like kind of incidental stuff, like names and music playing at the wrong time and stuff. But then there were out of environment fixes, some invisible geography stuff. The out of environment stuff would be the most important takeaway there, since that was a huge problem for trials and some other things. This is one that I was super excited about. And again, I wonder why it took us so long to get to this point. But raid reward sources now include masterwork materials as follows. Enhancement cores and prisms now have a chance to drop from hidden chests in Last Wish, Garden of Salvation, and Deepstone Crypt. It should have always been there. If you're doing a tippy top activity, like, I have always thought to myself that it's weird that the raids and dungeons are supposed to be pinnacle activities, but anytime there's something awarded, you either get very little, even though it's one of the hardest, or, like in this case, not getting the masterwork materials. That should always be something that was in there. And those materials that are in the chests are on a weekly lockout. It's per chest, per raid, per character. Okay, right? Now this part released, or I should say talked about something that's not released yet, but I'm going to talk about it anyway because I think that it's interesting. Ascendant shards are obtainable via a reward from a weekly director challenge connected to a featured raid. So the featured raid thing has not launched yet, but I think it is super cool that we're going to have a featured raid of the week. We need a reason to visit other raids that don't give out pinnacle gear, more than just because I wanna, right? And that will be a source for Ascendant shards. I think that is really, really dope. And then they note that the Ascendant Shard Weekly Director Challenge will require players to complete all encounters of the featured raid before paying out, which is probably good considering the Riven cheese. But again, I really like that, and I was just thinking, like, I've been saying to my friends, oh, we should do Last Wish, oh, we should do Last Wish, but there's not a reason. And when there's so many other things going on, sometimes it's hard to justify spending the time just because, you know what I mean? And it was the same thing that I've said about what's going on with the dungeons. I love that there's a high stat gear and new weapon rolls behind the dungeons, because it's the same thing. That loot incentive will keep people playing them for more reasons than just because. I love all the dungeons and all the raids, but the ones that you don't get anything from, it's hard to justify spending your time on it when time is at a premium, you know? So I love this direction that we're moving in with the loot being behind these activities. There were a bunch of fixes to Last Wish, XP awards, network issues, spawn issues, a bunch of different stuff like that. Long list of stuff they fixed. You can check it out. Garden of Salvation had just a music sync issue that was fixed. Deepstone Crypt, this first one is the one I really like. Atrax 1's health bar should exhibit less rubber banding behavior. Thank you. One thing I have despised about that encounter above all others is that very cheap method of melt prevention. And I think really, for the most part, it's been in a good place if you're careful. But in particular, we would often fail that encounter because, you know, we would get to the last one, like last damage phase before last stand and do just a little too much damage. And instead of going into last stand, he'd rubber band, or I guess she would rubber band. And then we'd end up failing the encounter because we weren't ready for it and, you know, didn't scan in time and stuff like that. So I'm glad to see that, like, mainly for that instance. During the rest of it, it wasn't such a big deal. But when you would get close to final stand, that was the thing. And then this is going to be a sad trombone for the glitchers out there. The free roam scanner augment will now be removed from players when starting the first raid encounter. So, nope, you can't get around the closing of the oobs by bringing the free roam scanner into the raid anymore. Sorry, guys. Okay, and there's some good stuff for the dungeons here. I'm not going to go through a bunch of the changes, really, but Shattered Throne chests will no longer drop items that have reached their max power caps, so that's cool. I never really got anything but blues out of those anyway. So, Reverie Dawn armor that drops in the Shattered Throne dungeon will roll with higher stats, comparable to raid armors. Long overdue. Actually, I'm going to step to the side here for a second and say it is a huge problem that the dungeons until recently have never really dropped anything of value other than pinnacle gear. And having done a bunch of raids now and then done the dungeons, they're as good as any raid. Their difficulty, I think, is comparable, especially the new ones. Maybe not as mechanically complex, but they're still difficult. And it's sort of a shame that they've not gotten the same treatment with, like, loot and specific weapons and specific mods. And going forward, like, what I would like to see for the next dungeon is its own specific armor, at least a couple specific weapons, and even its own specific mods that are tailored to that dungeon. And I understand they can't, you know, dump a ton of resources into doing that versus, like, creating the raids, but even one mod that's specific to that experience that helps you would be neat. You know, I'm just saying. That's what I would like to see. Okay, moving on. The Pit of Heresy dungeon. Same thing. Its chests will no longer drop items that have reached their max power cap. All Essence quests will still have a chance to drop from the pit encounters, which is good. And they did the same thing with the Dreambane armor. They'll roll with higher stats, comparable to raid armors, and weapons that drop in the Pit of Heresy dungeon can roll with perks that are unavailable from drops from other reward sources. So, again, I love that they did that. The reissued weapons, the optimum place to chase those is in the dungeons because that's where the new rolls are. Go do the dungeon, get a roll you can't get outside of the dungeon. And that's a great way of creating a more, raid-like parody with all that stuff. Also note that the final chest in the pit will no longer drop fully Masterwork Dreambane armor. Instead, that armor will always have 7 armor energy and is guaranteed to drop with at least a plus 16 in 2 different stats, with higher stats overall. And Dreambane class items will not drop from the chest, so no wasted drops by getting a Warlock Bond or a Hunter Cloak or a Titan Mark. So that's good. And then there's just some fixes. Let's see. And then Prophecy just got a bunch of bug fixes. And then in general, Bungie says they fixed a bunch of AI behavior bugs in all activities where, like, combatants would just be standing still, they'd be teleporting or moving in the wrong direction or whatever it is. And there were some other things. They had some notes on UI and UX. this is a good one. Collection categories now allow players to mark all new items as seen to clear the new item indicator for that category. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then this one I loved, and it just shows like one of the things I love about Bungie, how they support fans and content creators rather than keeping them down, which is that the Vault now has a button with information about how to access the Destiny Companion app and others built by the Destiny community. So that's Ishtar, that's Dim, probably Little Light. Love them actually giving a dedicated shout out programmed into the game for those people, because I know I depend on Dim. I mean, the companion app is okay, but Dim just has like all these filters and all these things, and it makes my playing experience not just easier but faster. And I can, look at a piece of armor that dropped with one click, get a comparison going, make a decision, move on. I think that's really great, and make sure that I don't miss something that I should keep. So that is awesome. Thank you, Bungie, for supporting the community that way. What else do we have in here? There's a whole bunch of sandbox notes that they made. There's some stuff specific to stasis. I know that the stasis freeze breakout on controller is now double press B. I'm not sure how I feel about that, because I always hated that. You're supposed to be able to change the controls for the breakout action via controller remapping, but I feel like console doesn't have that. I tried to find the place where you could change like taps, toggles, long presses, and I don't know if I'm just dumb, but I couldn't find it. So let me know in the comments where the heck that is, because I can't find it now. I remember it was there. Let's see, what else? Oh, other little note. Handheld Supernova, the one non-stasis thing they mentioned, reduced self-damage from 100% to 25%. Thank you. Also not sure what that's going to do in certain scenarios, but hey, nobody's using that anyway, because they've all moved over to stasis in the Crucible, right? Another thing that really got my attention, reduced the cost of Deepstone Crypt raid mods significantly. Very grateful for this. I don't know that it necessarily crossed my mind that they were priced too high, but it'll be nice to be able to make some better combinations and sort of make my Deepstone Crypt armor like more on par with my usual general setup. Have the raid mods, but then have that scavenger mod that I want, or have, without having to go all the way up to 10, basically, because who wants to masterwork armor anymore? It sunsets, right? Yeah. But I think that that's right. I don't think that their cost was on par with how strong they actually are. I'll put it that way. Is there anything in particular in that section that matters besides that? No. Catalysts for the following weapons have had their sources and objectives updated to not be associated with vaulted content. Bad Juju, Izanagi's Burden, Sleeper Simulant, the Huckleberry, World Line Zero, Polaris Lance, Telesto, Legend of Acreus, yes, and Skyburner's Oath. So all of those catalysts will be obtainable. Again, they are no longer tied to vaulted activities. Also, that problem with Sturm's exotic perk was fixed. And the problem with Merciless not increasing its charge rate on non-lethal hits was fixed. And the issues affecting the exotic perks for Jade Rabbit, Ariana's Vow, and Cold Heart were fixed, which is great. Weapon archetype changes. I'm not going to go through every single one, but the rocket launcher damage was increased about 30% against mini-boss tier enemies and above, so mini-boss through full boss. The issue with Eyes of Tomorrow is a known issue at this point. The damage decrease with that weapon was unintended, and the team is looking into it. There's a fixed plan for a future update, so don't freak out, guys. That was not a stealth nerf. It was unintended. And then on that note, exotic rocket launchers have been adjusted individually and are affected by this change to a different degree. So whoops, someone messed up with Eyes of Tomorrow. And of course we have the breach grenade launcher change, which I have been loving, by the way, since these seasons started. Breach grenade launcher projectiles will now detonate on impact with enemies, even if holding the trigger. Welcome change. Thank you so much. And then, of course, they talked about the recoil and camera movement changes for the other weapons that we talked about before. Let's see. And they fixed the exotic weapons that were losing their buff when you were pulling out a ghost. So that was Ace of Spades, Terabah, and the final round of Hawkmoon. I appreciate that because I had many a Hawkmoon messed up by that. And then I haven't tried this yet. I'm anxious to see it. The Borealis and Hard Light now have a custom short animation for switching damage type. So I guess it's no longer the full reload animation. It's some special short animation. I like that. Let's see. Power and progression. This is important to note. We have updated power bands, so the power floor is now 1100. And if you were paying attention, friends, that means that everything you have, all your gear, was moved up to 1100. Yes, that includes sunset gear. So your beloved mountaintop that you can't bear to part with, that is capped at 1050, is now 1100. It has been moved up to the power floor. And this kind of interests me. It's something that I asked about a lot leading up to sunsetting, and I wish Bungie would have been more upfront about how that aspect of power would play out. This suggests that as different content ages, say like Deepstone Crypt, if it could become accessible to sunset gear through changes to the power floor, through the increases to the power floor. Now, of course, that assumes that they don't adjust the power level of something like Deepstone Crypt to keep it out of reach of those things. It assumes that a thing doesn't get vaulted before its power comes in line with the power floor. Different stuff like that. But I'll be keeping an eye on that just to see how it plays out. But I am glad, because for sure, like, there are things in the world right now that it wasn't really a good idea to use your sunset stuff on, that now that stuff's 1100 and its power level hasn't changed. So just keep that in mind. Give it a whirl. Pay attention to the power, because that stuff is 1100 now, even though it was capped at 1050. Okay? Let's see. The soft cap is now 1250, and I want to share my experience, which is that on the first day, if you watched my stream, you would have, oh, I'm upset that my gear drops aren't very good, and I was forgetting. Having gotten to max power last season, I was already over the soft cap. So I had bypassed that climb from 1100 to 1250. I've kind of like forgotten what that's like, because our last new season also came with an annual content release, and that's a longer power climb, right? Where we actually have to go through that climb from the floor to the soft cap. And I'm just sharing this because, guys, don't get distracted. If you're like me and you're 1250 or higher, remember, pinnacles and powerfuls. Don't worry about other stuff. Do your pinnacles and your powerfuls and then move to the next thing like usual. And speaking of powerfuls, the powerful cap is 1300, with the pinnacle cap at 1310. So we have a nice little climb from 1250 to 1300, and then our pinnacle only climbed to 1310. They said that when below the soft cap, increase the upper limit of power upgrades dropped from weekly powerful sources. So I take that to mean that they'll be like, instead of being like +1 or +2, they'll be higher. Okay. They increased the XP rewards for Last Wish to match Garden and Deepstone Crypt. And then fixed an issue where the power preview for some vendor items did not match the power of the gear received. Very nice. Thank you so much. They do go on to talk about the gilded titles, and just as a reminder, the titles that can be gilded every season are Dredgen, Unbroken, Conqueror, and Flawless. that's cool if that's something that you want to do, is go get gilded every season. I'm not really interested in most of that stuff, but I think it's really, really great for the people that want that. And I don't know how we would do it, but I'd like to see that get a little more pervasive. But definitely, I guess those are really the only activities it makes sense for. But who knows? I just think it's cool. So I'm glad they did it, even though it's not really something for me. What else? We know that the Exo Stranger has a new Stasis Aspect quest available. I did that on my Warlock, and I can tell you that that little Stasis turret is awesome. And though it hurt me to give up my Stasis well that would freeze, a mob that was around me, I really like using the turret with the, Whisper of Fissures, the ice that tracks on the ground. And also, since that Whisper of Fissures has been fixed, with its cooldown and everything, it's working better again, and I really like the way it pairs up with the turret. I just think it's really cool. You should definitely try that out if you are a Warlock. Let's see. Remember that it requires Beyond Light ownership, campaign completion, and acquisition of all prior stasis aspects from the Stranger before you can get the new one. And I was happy to hear this. Reduce the completion values for many Stasis Fragment Pursuit objectives to be less frustrating. They were a little high. And I must say, we keep seeing this disconnect where Bungie sets these bars really high. And it's like, dudes, listen. It's a 3-month season. And there's sunsetting and all these other things. And I mean, that doesn't affect Stasis, but I'm just saying in general, like, you can't make the grind's too long, because then by the time the grind is finished, the viability is over, and you just can't have that mismatch in balance. But also, that's kind of not fun anyway. It's discouraging to people. So there's definitely this happy balance between putting in the appropriate amount of effort and having some grind, and then having kind of this ridiculous grind that's not fun and people just aren't finishing it. So happy to see that. Very, very happy to see it. Let's see, what else? Season of the Worthy Eververse items have been added as potential drops in the Bright Engram. That's cool, because I still have some things to collect from there. Don't forget that Spider is now selling Glacial Starwort and Spinfoil. You also can no longer use Phase Glass, Needles, Alkane Dust, Simulation Seed, or Seraphite, but you can turn them into Spider for a small quantity of Glimmer. So if you had any left that you didn't use it to fill in your Glimmer when you start going broke, okay? Let's see. Is there anything else in there that matters? That is going to do it for the highlights of Update 3.1.0. So moving on to the TWAB, we're going to start with our Season of the Chosen roadmap check. So right now we have the Behemoth and Hailstone Battlegrounds. The Devil's Lair and Fallen Saber Strikes and Helm has come online. We also have the new Stasis Aspect quests starting. Now, I want to make a note about the strikes. The Devil's Lair will have a direct launch node from the Cosmodrome map starting next week, so Tuesday, and it will be available through the Vanguard Strikes playlist. Until then, you can play the Devil's Lair, since it is the selected Nightfall. It's just you have to do it there. It's not selectable from the map. It's not in the playlist yet. It's the Nightfall. Fallen Saber is currently not available due to a bug. So that's why you're not seeing it. It's bugged, so it's not in rotation, not available. Hopefully they get that fixed soon, because I was looking forward to that. And then our next upcoming thing on the roadmap is for February 12th. Trials begins with new armor, weapons, and more. I don't care about it, but for those of you that do, that's what's next. Let's see. Scrolling down. There were some few things that got left out of the patch notes for 3.1.0. So they talk about the new quest details screen. You can access that by pressing inspect when you're mousing over a quest, and I think that's really great. I like that overview. I really, really like it, and it's full page without distractions, leaves room for more text, more explanation. I'm looking forward to seeing how they make improvements to the quest experience through that screen. So thank you for that first step. I think we're doing great with that. What else? What else? What else? The Destiny Content Vault and the Cosmodrome. This is really, really important. So, to break it down, the development team originally planned to bring the Cosmodrome back and flesh it out to roughly Destiny 1 Year 1 parity. What is happening now is that they have decided not to add any more to the Cosmodrome. So, the areas that are missing right now are not going to be filled in at any later date. They've made this decision in favor of working on new content, and I have to say that I agree with it. You know, like, what is it that they are going to do with that space that justifies the dev time outside of saying, we have the complete Cosmodrome here, just like you remember it? Because it's not necessary for the Sepik Strike or for Fallen Saber. Like, everything that needs to be there is there. You know what I mean? And so, I just have to say that I really, really, really agree with it. They want to invest their time and resources into building new experiences for Year 4 and beyond that. And I agree. I don't want to take away from the cool stories we could tell and the cool experiences that we could have just to flesh out a patrol space. Like, I would even rather see that energy dedicated to a raid reprisal rather than a patrol space. You know what I'm saying? And I would say that even if I hadn't turned into a player that likes to raid. I just think that kind of thing is a lot more important. Or, like, even a quest that's like Whisper or Hawkmoon or 0 Hour. I would rather that they do those kind of things than flesh out a part of the Cosmodrome that doesn't matter. That there's no real reason to do it. So, I understand the reason for the decision, and I definitely support it. And it kind of gives us an idea of what's possible going forward, because, you know, you might hear, oh, Venus is returning. But it doesn't have to be all of Venus. Maybe it's the area where the Vault of Glass is. And they can spend time on the part that needs to be done and not waste resources trying to do the whole thing. Trying to bite off this big piece that just isn't that important, right? So, anyway, they're going to have more details to share about that whole thing as time goes on. And that's, you know, with regard to how they're going to use the DCV to drive variety in the game going forward. I think it means, too, that maybe some things are not going to play out the way that we hoped they will. I don't necessarily take that as a negative. But if you think that something that went into the vault is going to come back out exactly the way it was before, at least when we're talking about size and scope, that may not be the case. And that's not necessarily bad. I think it's good to be realistic about it. Anyway, so there's that. I think that's going to do it. We're not going to go through all these known issues and stuff because it's mostly small things. If you want to look at it, you guys know where to find the updates and the TWABs on the Bungie news page. Let's see. The challenge system. That is one of the things that I am enjoying the most about this new season so far. I really, really prefer the challenge system to having to go and look through and collect bounties. And I mean, I guess you could say, like, what's the difference between that and a bounty? But it's account-wide, so I don't have to worry about it per character. I don't have to go pick it up, so I'm making progress on it whether I'm trying to or not. And it's easier. I like the interface, and I like that sort of these more challenging, maybe more grindy things are part of the challenge system, and as a result, bounties are a little bit more straightforward and supplementary, which, I mean, that is the goal that they outlined. And I really, really, really like that. It seems like we hit that right on the head. I loved the challenge system when Halo Reach had it, and it's nice to see it here in Destiny. It's pretty much like what was there, but obviously geared toward Destiny and the way that Destiny plays. I like having that direction in my gameplay. You know, maybe I've gotten all my powerful gear and I want to know what should I do to try to get ahead. And I like it, and I've been happy with the amount of XP and Bright Dust and things that have been awarded so far. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the more challenging challenges are going to be and just what the different things are going to be. Yeah, we're off to a great start with it. Not going to lie. It looks really good. So looking forward to what we get next. The new Celestial Eververse armor. Oh my god, have you looked at it? It is amazing. I'm reminded of the Hunter Empyrean Cartographer Eververse ornaments. And I mean, that's one that I think I've seen everybody wear. So many hunters have just the cloak, right? With the constellations on it, the glowing constellations. And you can tell that there was a lot of inspiration from how much people liked that particular Empyrean Cartographer ornament set. And I just love this Zodiac constellation motif for each class and how each one is designed after a different constellation, like the sweeping wing shapes for Pegasus on the Warlock, the scorpion design on the Hunter Cloak. The Titan Taurus set is hands down the best one overall. I mean, the way they did like this metallic bull look and like the bull helmet and the hoof boots, they're outstanding. And then you've got the glowing stars and everything too, right? And I mean, really, all the sets are outstanding. I mean, it is excellent, excellent work by that design team. I just wish that we could see things on this level that were earnable in activities. And it wouldn't take away from people wanting to buy things in Eververse. I'm not saying don't put cool looking things in Eververse. What I'm saying is I want to see that level of awesome design in an earnable space, like for a dungeon, right? Because we know that an Eververse set was put in Prophecy, and I loved chasing it. It was well designed, cool looking stuff, and it was fun to do the dungeon to chase it. And so I say the same thing. Specific armor for dungeons and make it on the design level of some of this Eververse stuff. The stuff designed for Eververse will still be there and still be paid for. Just give us one on that level that we can earn. That's all I'm trying to say. Nerfs and buffs. The sword nerf is really not that bad. It looks like it would be bad by the numbers, but truthfully, like if I'm being honest with myself, the swords just feel balanced now instead of kind of ridiculously overpowered, and it kind of makes me laugh thinking about where we were when we first got Falling Guillotine and how crazy that sword was. I mean, it's actually been nerfed twice now for a total of something like 27% of damage, and it's still one spin to take out most yellow bars. The place where I notice it the most is like in Prophecy, for example, when we fought Phalanx Echo, the first boss encounter. Like, it took a little bit longer to kill him, and you probably want to make sure you're using Lucent Blade if that's how you're going to approach a boss. But it doesn't feel nerfed. Do you know what I'm saying? It just feels like, okay, this is probably the damage space that this should have sat in before. So I was happy about that because I was a little nervous. The recoil changes. Oh my god, they are sublime. I love the way that SMGs in particular feel right now, that they're like practically like laser beams, except for kind of the recluse archetype that's a little more of a bucking bronco, but even those feel a lot better. Those of us that have been playing on the sticks all this time, well, we know what we were missing over on PC now. I just really like that we're closer to how they are. And hand cannons feel a lot better now too, by the way, as a result of all of this. I mean, I was saying to my friend the other day, a lot of what keeps people playing Destiny is that Bungie crafts the best feeling shooters that there are. Halo had it, and now Destiny has that same pedigree. And you would think that it wouldn't be possible for them to make Destiny's shooting gunplay like feel any better. After these changes, oh my lord. I love playing this game just for that, and everything feels so much better now and less like I'm fighting it to a degree that's like sort of not fair, especially compared to another platform, PC. And yeah, I'm just really, really happy with it and enjoying what it's getting me as far as performance and activities, you know. I have a Prophecy Dungeon update too, because my friends and I played it last night to get some gear and move up. And the hexahedron is fixed. The symbols are once again appearing on the cube in the middle of the hexahedron. The aesthetic is restored. It makes no difference to gameplay whatsoever. But, like, trust me, guys, when you see it, if it was something that you noticed, it's so much better to have the symbols of the 9 back on that cube. The aesthetic is back on point. So I was happy to see that. It's a stupid fiddly thing, but I'm happy about it. All right, guys. Well, that is going to do it for this week's Tower Talk. And like always, stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Be excellent to each other. And I will see all of you Starside.